Hiya folks, Simon here, welcome back to the channel. So the rumour mill is back up again, and I've left it a couple of days before making a video on this one. You know, when it comes to rumours, I do like to just gauge the mood a little bit, see what people's initial reactions are. But it seems you guys do want to know about this one, and I've had a few messages as well asking why I haven't made a video, so here it is. So the rumour is that Final Fantasy VII Remake is soon to be announced for PS5. In fact, this announcement is to be expected during next month, February. And this comes to us from Navtra. Now, if you're not familiar with Navtra, Navtra is a poster over at the ResetEra forums and has built up somewhat of a reliable reputation when it comes to these sorts of leaks. Navtra correctly predicted the imminent announcement of Final Fantasy XVI, even at a time where other people were saying, no, that's just not going to happen while Final Fantasy VII Remake is still in development, but it did, amongst other things as well. So, Navtra's post tells us that Square's announcements are piling up, and as well as the Final Fantasy VII Remake PS5 announcement, we can also expect announcements for a new expansion for Final Fantasy XIV, the popular MMO, and a new announcement for Life is Strange 3. So, just to clarify, this is of course referring to the first part of Final Fantasy VII Remake, the game that was released on PS4 as a console exclusive last March. Now, we do know that that exclusivity period was for 1 year, so it sort of makes sense that we're due an announcement for what's going to be happening next, and it also makes sense that that announcement's going to be for PS5, since Square and Sony have that working relationship together. I know a lot of people are interested in what's going to be happening with a PC version, perhaps a few people are interested in what's going to be happening with an Xbox version, but right now it seems Sony and Square are still going to be working together, and that once that exclusivity period ends, that PS5 is going to be the focus. That doesn't mean we're not going to be getting versions of the game on those other systems, but it just, you know, is not what Square's going to be talking about right now. Incidentally as well, this is a good time to remind you, there was a rumour a few months ago, which has never been squashed by the way, so as far as I know, it's still, you know, something that we can look to, that the upcoming release on PS5, the inevitable release, is not simply going to be a port from PS4, but it's actually going to be some kind of definitive edition of the game, including new content, with DLC content focused on various characters from the story. Now, it may be possible that any additional content is also going to make its way to the PS4 version, but, you know, it's just something worth remembering that this could be quite an exciting time when the game is re-released on PS5. Now, of course, we can expect all the graphical improvements for a PS5 release. The PS4 version currently does play on PS5, but it does so, to be honest, no real difference than it does on the PS4 version. Yes, you get those faster loading times because of the SSD, but the frame rate is still capped, you still get those texture issues. So having an optimised version for PS5 is clearly something that Square are going to be working on, and according to this rumour, we can expect to hear about very, very soon. Square's post-release philosophy for Final Fantasy VII Remake has certainly been an interesting one. The game was released last March, and it ended up in our hands, for many of us anyway, much earlier than anticipated because of the developing COVID situation at the time. And when it came to us early, there was a, you know, fair few bugs that were discovered, such as the graphical glitches, the infamous, you know, blurry doors and what have you. And to be honest with you, a lot of people were saying there was going to be a day one patch on the actual release date. Well, that never happened. In fact, the only patch that was ever released for Final Fantasy VII Remake was a bug fix patch that came months later and was so minor, I still to this day do not actually know what that bug fix patch actually fixed. So, yeah, you know, we've still got the various issues that in the game, such as those textual issues, and Square have not said anything about them, so maybe they've just been biding their time for this PS5 release, and they're going to be dumping a whole load of stuff for the game around the same time, just to start bringing excitement back up again for the project and for the franchise, because obviously we know that Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 is currently in full development. We don't know how the current situation with COVID is affecting the development on that game. It has been hinted at that the development has slowed because of COVID, but then it's also been hinted at that the game is still very much in full development. We know that Final Fantasy XVI is in full development. In fact, many are suspecting Final Fantasy XVI to be released now before the second game in the Final Fantasy Remake project. So hopefully then these rumours, if they pan out, are a sign that Square are perhaps breaking their radio silence from the last few months on Final Fantasy VII Remake, and we're going to start getting more news and updates from them about the project as we go into the year. I did also take a nose on Audrey's Twitter feed. Audrey does provide some fun insight into these various rumours and stuff, and Audrey reminds us that on February 12th, 13th, there's going to be a Final Fantasy VII Remake concert in Tokyo. Now, that's interesting because in 2019, at the Kingdom Hearts concert in Tokyo, Tetsuya Nomura actually showed up. So maybe he'll do so again with a teaser trailer or an announcement. At least the timing here does line up with the rumour. So keep an eye out for that. Let you guys know if there are any updates. But what do you folks think about the rumour? If there is going to be this PS5 version announced imminently, what do you want to see from it? Do you just want to see a straight up port, I guess, or copy from the PS4 version, but with that improved tech for PS5, such as 60 frames per second, and some of those issues squashed, like the texture issues? Or do you want to see more from the game? Do you want to see the character DLC that was hinted at in times past in a, I guess, a definitive version of Part 1? Or do you just think now that Square should be really pushing ahead and focused on Part 2? Yeah, please do share your thoughts down in the comments about that. As always though, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. For any new Final Fantasy VII Remake news, make sure to stay here tuned on the channel, and I'll see you next time.